informed that we do have a forum, so we'll open the meeting for the Service Committee of the Central Midlands Regional Transit Authority, and we'll call the meeting to order and call the roll for the determination of the quorum. Yes, please.
Mr. Brennan,
Present.
Mr. Burgess,
Present.
Ms. Gleason, Ms. Mood,
Yes, here.
Ms. Teresa, Mr. Jenkins, Mr. Coon, Ms. Robinson.
Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. We'll proceed to the adoption of the agenda. To have a motion to adopt the agenda.
So move.
Thank you. And a second.
Second.
Thank you, Ronald. And I think probably we can just adopt the agenda by acclamation since we have a motion and a second, and I'm for it. And that's only 3 members here voting, so we'll adopt the agenda.
Yeah, Tracy just came up,
Oh, and Mr. Ratio did.
just came up.
Good. Welcome, Allison.
She's connecting the audio.
So we'll move on to number 3, the Midlands Transit Riders Association update. And Walter, you'll bring that to us.
Thank you, Lil. I have a couple of things. First of all, I was wondering if Route 88 is still running, because on Monday and Tuesday of this week, it never came to the Seminole stop at 9:30 in the morning, which is the first run of that route for the day. So just wondering if the 88 is still running. I know that it's going to be discontinued at some point, but I don't know when that's going to be. The other thing is, this was on our Facebook page on July the 5th, and I want to read it to you. There's a security guard at the transit station who is allegedly harassing people waiting on their buses. The first incident, he accused the person of loitering, basically saying he was at the transit station for more than an hour, when in fact the person just got off from work. He works at McDonald's on Elmwood. The security guard called the police to have him removed. Once the police arrived, he was free to leave, in which he did after getting a ride instead of riding the bus. The security guard assumed the young man was homeless, even though he was in his work clothes. The second incident, same day, he accused another patron of being in the transit station for more than an hour, even though the person bought a monthly bus pass and was standing outside smoking a cigarette while waiting for his bus. So this person that wrote this said the security is not professional in the way he speaks to the public. I don't know who this person is who wrote this, and I don't know what security guard they're referring to, but if it is in fact true, it needs to be addressed. That's all I got.
Thanks, Walter. Well, I'm going to lay something on your shoulders, Jackie. These 2 things, if you will just follow up to get to the root, and I know you'll be working with Mr. Cooksey to do that. The first question being whether Route 88 is still in operation, and if it is, then to check back on that report of a missed stop of what happened on that day. And Walter can add, you can follow up with him with any details that he has. And then second, of course, the concerns about the conduct of a security guard at the transit center. If you all would try to get to the root of that from the Facebook report, that would be great. Thank you for calling those to our attention, Walter, and we'll try to get to the root of the problem, and so we can confirm or not, and then try to correct what.
Good. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Okay, so anybody else have questions or comments for Mr. Durst? All right, Then we'll move on to adoption of the minutes from June 8th. They'll have a motion to approve the minutes.
So move.
All right, and second? I second that, and let's just do a roll call, so we make sure we got everybody's vote.
Okay. Mr. Brennan,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Ms. Clayton is out, Ms. Mood,
Yes.
Ms. Teresa,
Yes.
Okay, so the minutes are approved. And we'll move on to item 5, discussion and action items. And the first is our report on passenger amenities. Looking to see who's with, oh, there's that. Okay, go ahead, Ms. McGee.
Good afternoon. So for this past month, we have received one encroachment permit from SCDOT for stop number 1407. And AOS has that stop under construction. And then we've also continued to meet with Eric Harris to discuss just ongoing projects. And got I guess a minor update for stop number 1037, the one in Forest Acres. DOT has removed the permit application that we had submitted just due to inactivity on it. That doesn't mean that we can't do anything there moving forward. We'll just have to resubmit that application if things change. Other than that, those are the main highlights I had. Anybody has any questions?
Well, I would just comment on that unresolved issue at Forest Acres. And my understanding is that that we'll have a stop there, but that the putting in a shelter met with some opposition from the merchants in the area where the shelter would be located. And so I think we're going to have some homework to do in terms of working with both the Forest Acres government and the business community to reach some agreement, because we certainly want people waiting for the bus to have the amenities that they need, but we also need to be working in harmony with the local government and the local business community. So when we run into an obstacle like that, what do you usually do? How do you all proceed in terms of who you're working with? I'm certain with Eric, could we just ask Eric to, and Eric, are you on the call now?
Madam Chair, Mr. Harris asked to be excused. He's busy being a father today.
Oh, my goodness, I knew that was gonna be coming up too.
They were on their way to the hospital earlier.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Well, we probably won't ask him to do that today. Then. But Zach, would you just make sure that you follow up with Eric on how we might work through, and I'm sure you can call on Pam in terms of the public relations part of that, of trying to arrive at some amicable agreement on, because I don't want you to go through making another permit application if none of the conditions have changed.
Right, yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, we wouldn't fill out
Okay.
another application until we had some movement, I guess, with Forest Acres. So I was just saying it has been, DOT took it off their list just because it wasn't really
Just for
moving, but,
inaction. Right.
right.
Right,
But
so
yeah,
if you and Eric and Pam, somebody from your staff, and with Andy Smith also, since he's right there, he's on the board and in Forest Acres. Just see if you can find, if you can see a path forward to providing amenities for riders at that stop. And then we'll just hear back from you as on progress with that.
okay.
Okay, anything else for that? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes,
Report.
yes, good afternoon. Everyone's having a great day today. We'll go through and talk about the items on showing pages 10 through 40, and I promise the goal is not to take too much of your time today. In saying that, want to start off talking about COVID-19. Normally, the last several months, you've seen zero on this particular slide, but we've had 3 cases. We're what, 2.5 years into the pandemic now? And what, according to the World Health Organization, the BA.5 and BA.4, that's really what's fueling the global surge. What we do know, this number 3 is not alarming. We know back in December, January, when we were up around 30 or so individuals. We know our pain points, and we're 2.5 years in. We're pretty well experienced on how to deal with this situation operationally. So we're going to continue to monitor it and taking the precautions and highly recommending the safe actions in this area. But definitely we'll definitely have to keep an eye on the surge, the summer surge, and then going into the fall. How we're sitting.
Well, from what you're saying sounds absolutely right to me in terms of the trends and the variants and what's causing the new surge. And I'm acutely aware that I know Lexington County is in a high community spread area. And I don't have the latest in Richland County on the tip of my brain, but I don't want to probe too deeply, but can you say anything about our folks that have tested positive? Are they just quarantined because of a positive test? Are they getting ill?
Yeah, what we've seen is no one has gotten ill. They have the positive test and they're being quarantined, but we're not seeing what we saw a year or so ago. They're able to test negative in a short amount of time and return. So we haven't seen the hospitalizations or the extreme illnesses this time around. It's very infectious, but it hasn't been as potent in those areas.
Which is has been predominantly the case, particularly among vaccinated people. So I'm relieved to hear that.
Yes, me too, absolutely.
All right.
Going into our customer service, taking a look at some of the numbers. So we have had compared to May of last year, we've had or May of last month rather, we had a 14% decrease in our customer service, complaints. Also, our safety category has decreased to 13%, down from 24. But what we have seen, and I'll talk a little bit about it on the next slide, is our reliability category has increased. And if you recall a couple of months ago when we were kind of talking through this issue, I mentioned that's something we want to see with the changes that we've made and the adjustments, what that number looks like. And I'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. Overall, however, we are outperforming our goal. We're exceeding that overall as far as complaints per 10,000. So it was a good month overall in that area. So I'm glad to see that type of those numbers continuing to trend down in the big picture. The next slide I added was passengers passed by, because I just kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit, because we are trending in the wrong direction. If you look at the total RATP Dev complaints, then you look at, okay, where the passenger pass by complaints fall. For the month of June, about 50% of the complaints were, hey, the bus passed me by, or something related to that. And then the previous months, May and April were lower than that. So we're definitely trending in the wrong direction in that area. And if I'm looking at it, just to kind of drill down a little deeper into that, I wanted to look at valid versus invalid, because we know what I reported, I believe it was last year when I kind of went to talking about valid complaints, we were probably in the 40 percentile or so of what was valid versus invalid. So we're still roughly in that number. It was a little high in June, 57% of the complaints on the bus passing by were valid. Again, the last 3 months have been 50% or higher. So, the question, and I have Ms. Turner here for those first time seeing her. She's our interim operations manager, assistant general manager. And one of the things that we tasked or help her tasked with is really reviewing our policy in that area, just to make sure that we're solid and making sure the operators understand our policy in those particular areas. I'd like to do some additional training. We did some training, a heavy amount of training in April, and that's could be why you see the numbers so low in April, right? I'd like to believe there was a correlation. So we need to continue to do refresher trainings on customers. It's really our customer engagement, our customer service training, but it also encompasses pass ups and things of that nature. Also, I wanted, I talked to the safety manager. He was here last month, Charles Hall. I really wanted to take a look at, just from my experience, left-hand turns. Because sometimes you may have a bus stop that's too close to the traffic signal. So if you're an operator, you're gonna already start to move over to make that left turn to get into your next lane, because there may not be enough distance. And I wanted to look at really how many bus stops that we have sitting in that particular situation. And what can we do? Sometimes it's a matter of moving them back 10 or 15 feet if possible, just to allow the operator enough time to make the stop and get over safely to make the left-hand turn. Also, another area that may be impacting us is lighting. Sometimes it's hard sometimes to pick up someone at night or during dusk or dawn. I used to tell when I drove many years ago, I used to tell my customers, because I drove a lot at night, and I would always tell them, help me see you, because my eyes are constantly scanning. As a bus operator, you can't fix on the bus stop. You constantly, your eyes have to be moving left to right. So, and a lot of times we tell them, hey, it's very simple. You got a cell phone, all you need to do is just hold it up. You see the bus come, because that light is going to catch my eye and I know somebody is there. Those are the little things. It's really part of a customer etiquette campaign that we can team up with the Comet as well on those type of things, and making sure that you're up at the stop, making sure that, help us see you. So, I know we're at, looking at the 57% valid. I think as we start to work on left-hand turns, working with the customers, those are some ideas I have to kind of help drive that number down. Now, this isn't a huge number. If you look at the overall number of bus stops and routes we run a day, but it could be just that one person that needs to get to that appointment or needs to get home at a certain time if they have daycare issues. I mean, one is too many. And so I do want, that's why I put so much focus on pass-bys and making sure that we're doing everything we can to not have them, or make sure we can explain or find a way to work through that issue.
Well, I appreciate the way that you're exploring that, because my first thought was, do our riders now, all of them have accurate information on when the bus will be coming and where it will be stopping? And so we feel like we've covered all of that adequately. So it's not that we have uninformed riders, and so where they're expecting somebody to pick them up at a place where it's not.
Yeah, I feel confident that
Okay,
information.
that's been done.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay.
the other thing that's contributing to that too is just like the weather we have around the rain. If there's a bus stop that doesn't have a shelter, they're standing somewhere.
Wait
out the
for them
rain.
to stop.
So, they expect the driver to know that they're over here in the corner, and the driver doesn't know that.
Well, I think your point about, working closely with the Comet staff to see, this seems right for messaging campaign to riders, and what you said, help us see you, is a perfect kind of line for that because which gets across that this is certainly not in our best interest as the bus system, as well as the riders, for anybody to get passed by. That doesn't help anybody. And so it just some of the things that you've talked about, if you can work with the resources we have to see how we can give a prompt to riders to help them, because they may be, as you said, unaware. If I've stepped back, that the driver can't see that I'm there.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
at one point, we did do a social media campaign about don't hide from your ride.
Mhm.
We can reactivate that.
Okay.
Have that message.
And maybe just change the message to help us see you, I think is a really good way
Yeah.
because that's a positive statement of that. Yes. Okay, anybody have any other comments on that or questions on that, on the passenger pass by situation? Walter, do you have anything to add? Or any of our members of committee members?
No, I just wanted, as far as, I just made a note on here about most drivers wear masks, but I've seen a few that aren't. And I did an informal poll yesterday and about 25% of passengers are wearing masks.
Okay, that's an added just piece of information.
Yeah.
How about our committee members? Any of you have questions for Mr. Cooksey on the point of complaints about passenger pass by? Okay, hearing none, I'm going on to Mr. Cooksey,
Okay.
continue with his report.
Yes, thank you. Also like to give kudos or congratulations to a Mr. Henry Hamilton. He's one of our operators, been here 14 years. I'd like to congratulate him on being Employee of the Month. So great job to him. And I should be getting an update soon on as far as our subcontractor with TCS as Employee of the Month as well. But again, congratulations, Mr. Hamilton. Well done and well deserved. And we'll move on and talk about maintenance. So again, a very successful month in reference to our preventive maintenance PMIs. We had 55 scheduled and or completed 55 of those. So again, great job to the maintenance team making that happen. As far as our PM results, a little bit down this month. As far as our total miles between road calls, down to 10,251, down from 12,720. You know, some of our challenges in the month of June that we ran into was really just, you know, some of those really extreme hot days. You know, the heat, having some AC problems, you know, obviously does cause us some challenges, you know, during the month. And so we again slated for another hot month in July. Hopefully we'll have a little bit more success. We've also had a few challenges with parts, which we've known for some time that that's going to be an ongoing issue off and on. But it just kind of culminated and hit us this month. So the team is well aware of it. And if you look at last year, I don't have June on the PM results, but we were like 7,000 for the month of July. So the numbers were wasn't here during that time, but that's really low.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it could be heat as well. The summertime, it looks like from the trend, you tend to be down and then you'll bounce back up. So, and most of those, a lot of times those are AC issues where you need to, AC goes down, you need to bring the bus in and things of that nature. So no alarm here on this unless that trend stays that way, then we'll need to take a deeper look.
We've got more than July hot weather coming.
Yeah. Well, July, August. that's right.
August and September, and it can be brutal around here.
That's true.
Good.
That's true. So
Okay.
we're gonna hope we'll get through that and able to get some of the parts that we need as well. So we'll have just more vehicles available to us to kind of withstand those hot days. In reference to our on-time performance for the month of June, we did end the month at 70% compared to 64.5. And I just ran that was just the entire month of May. That was pre the launch, being that's how we track it per month. So that's why you see that number like that. So that is an increase. And paratransit as well had an increase. As far as our on-time performance, we're meeting weekly. There's a meeting between RITP Dev. We have our third party with Mr. Mike Hubble, the Comet. We're all involved in that. And we're really looking at our kind of tackling that on three fronts. We're looking at our runtime tweaks, things that minor adjustments that can be made. Issues in the field, those are things, is the operator doing, driving the right correctly? Are they doing the right things out there, right? So, that's a big part of it as well. and as well as any kind of technical aspects or issues that come along with that. So there's really three fronts happening all at one time as we continue to work through to continue to drive that number up. But comparatively speaking, we've made great strides, and we'll continue to do so. And so the two charts here, the second one is just more of a kind of a line graph, kind of just showing you, really where we were flat from December 21 to April, and then you see the climb upward from that point. So again, we got three areas that we're focusing on, and we'll hope to continue to see improvement in those areas. So.
Your graph fooled me because I'm so used to reading from left
Well,
to right.
you know what, and we will make sure we get that inverted the other way, so
Right.
it is going kind of the opposite way, so
Good.
my apologies. If we're taking a look at our ridership numbers, so basically June of 22 versus June of 21, there really is no significant change. Roughly about 191 boardings, so that for the most part, that stays flat. And then I'll talk a little bit more, interesting point I want to bring up on the next slide, actually, or the slide after next. But if we also look at our previous month, it's only a 3% decrease compared to May of 2022, going from June to May. So again, from a comparison standpoint, nothing drastic. But if I look at the average daily ridership, and when I was kind of looking through these numbers, what I found interesting, if you look at 2021, May to June, you see a much larger drop in boardings than you do in 2022 from May to June. And, I'm thinking, I'm like, well, God, gas prices are so high. And, there's so much going on that, even though it was we did have a decrease, I'm would say that it could have been a deeper decline had it not been potentially for the prices of fuel and people using the system. Of course, that's a theory. But if I'm looking at that number and looking at what could have been, if I'm basing it on the previous year and again, looking at the drop. So we can see, even though we may not have had a positive, the positive is within the negative. Does that make sense? Meaning that it could have been more than it was. It could have been worse.
Well, I'm looking at that, look at the drop, at what we experienced between May and June of 2021.
Right,
Looks very much like what we experienced from April to May
right.
in 2022.
Mhm.
I mean, it looks like almost the same pattern, but a month early. What do you make of that?
I saw that as well, and I did just not finish analyze that in my head, what to think of that. Of that, right? You see the same type of a dip, but moving in the different time frame.
I mean, particularly
Right,
when
yeah.
we're calculating in the university traffic. I mean,
Right.
we would think that would happen more from May to June than from April to May.
Yeah,
So,
be
so I,
interested.
yes, well, let us know what else you've
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
And those of you on the committee, if you have ideas of things that you'd like Mr. Cooksey to look at in that process, please let us know.
Okay, and that'd be interested in whenever he gets a chance to return with his new baby. I'd love to pick
With
Eric's brain as
yes,
well
yes, that's
on his thoughts and trends. It's sometimes a little challenging to trend things out now because of the last 2.5 years have been interesting. A lot of people have been wrong and so forth, but I'd love to get his take and what his thought too. But that was a good observation as well. And also for informational purposes, we started this a couple of months ago, just kind of looking at the top 5 increases and decreases in our ridership on different routes. So always that's good information just to kind of give you an idea of what's happening out there, related to these numbers. And it's also good numbers that, when we kind of put this together that way. We do share with Eric to kind of get his take as well on some thought. 'Cause, the key thing is I'm sharing information here, but it really is across the board and working with the comment and us all thinking about these trends and what we're seeing and how we can help each other. So this is a good, these are good to kind of sparks conversation and kind of helps us come up with solutions, or maybe for the future, what you keep and what you don't. That may come out of some of the things that we see here.
Well, of course, I'm happy to see the express bus that comes up my way doing better. I'm wondering about, and I've just attribute that to a gradual rebuilding of ridership. What do you count? What do you see accounting for the jump in Fort Jackson riders? Why would there be a big difference there?
Yeah, because my understanding on Fort Jackson for a while, they weren't allowing, they were using like a van type of a service that positioned outside of the gate that carried a lot of their riders in and on and off the base. Because there were times that we couldn't go in or we could go in. So the base was always challenging during that height of the COVID because sometimes we didn't have access. But they no longer have that service, my understanding. So that means there are more riders that are using our service now because we're now able to enter the base. and
With
make
fewer
the stop.
limitations.
Right, with fewer limitations. So that's why you see that number showing that way. So.
Any questions or comments from others on the call? All right.
All right, and again, our Dane Cock ridership, obviously, with school out, is gonna, have a decrease from June versus May. We had reduced service started May 5th with USC, so nothing alarming there. Those are just kind of consistent numbers that we would see this time of year. Skipping over to dark ridership. So if we look at 2022, so our total hours are slightly down. The one good thing to report is our cancellation rate percentage is also lower this year than it was last year. So that's always good when you have people actually you don't have as high of a cancellation rate, especially those that cancel at the door, because those really do impact your overall performance. The on-time performance, while meeting the goal or exceeding the goal actually, is down over 2021. So again, we are exceeding, the goal is 90% there, and we are exceeding that. Continually, they do a good job of making the adjustments and exceeding those goals. And there's a lot of information on here, and I hope it's not information overload. I just put a lot of stuff on here just to kind of report out so you can see what's going on a little more with DART and kind of understand their ridership trends as well. That they, if you look at 2019, and that's one of the reasons it's actually a part of this slide, is you really want to see pre-COVID, what, in the paratransit world, what we were looking at. And then you see the trends in 2021, 22, just to kind of give you an idea of where we were to where we are today.
Just recently, the board took the action to clarify that dark service would be available in the areas where we run flex routes. Have we been going on that long enough for you to be able to comment on ridership on those routes?
Not long enough yet to see any, but hopefully by next month.
We ought to be able to tell the
We'll
impact of
we'll
that.
talk with TCS and Dennis and see what those numbers look like and then be able to discuss that. I'll make a note of that here. See the impact of that.
Unless I hear from somebody else on the call, I'm just gonna keep on going forward.
Talking about our safety, I did mention that our safety, as far as our customer service or people calling in, the perception of safety issues is down. It also matched our total number of preventables for the month of June. So we had one. preventable accidents, so that's very good. Because what we were seeing, we were trending in the wrong direction. I remember recalling we were at, it was like 4 January, February, there was 4 in March, and then we had 2 last month and 1 now. So we want to definitely continue that trend, right? So very, very excited to talk about that. One thing, so really nothing more to talk about in the safety areas that, we constantly have our safety meetings, safety, safety, safety. I mean, that's something that we preach and live every day. And then Mr. Hall is doing a great job of developing programs to continue to make us safer as we look at these areas of concern or potential concern. Moving on to our human resources area, how are we staffed? So we're in pretty good shape overall. What we're seeing is we currently have 3 that started class this past Monday. We have 5 that are in training or further along, and eventually will be released into revenue service. We have a larger class that we're scheduled on the 25th of 12. And what we're seeing is we're usually getting about 50 to 60% of those that start a class will actually show up and go through the process. So that's why you're seeing a larger number. As we just want to really prepare for the fall. School is starting back soon, so we just want to make sure our numbers continue to stay up. So recruiting is something you never stop doing. You can't afford to. So this is why we pay so much attention to it often. And even I can tell you, as far as our ATP devs, one of the things that we do is we meet weekly, and we being the organization with the different divisions, and the conversation is in and around, hiring practices, engagement with the operators, all the things that you need to do to be successful. What are you doing in your location? How do you do it? Are you behind? What can we do to help you? And we get a lot of support in that area. So that's definitely something that we will stay on top of. To close this out, so again, we made our goal in reference to our paratransit on-time performance. We came in at 70% for our fixed route, a little bit down in our mean distance between road calls, but we do have an explanation. We hope to bounce back on that. We did exceed our customer service complaint goals there, so another great job, as well as our preventable accidents. And that concludes my report. I'm open for any additional questions.
Okay. Does anyone have questions or comments? Mr. Cooksie?
Well, I do have a question from the North Panther Riders Association, a walker that was in the chat, and wanting to know if it would be possible to consider relaxing the rule of not drinking water on the bus during the hot month.
Can you repeat that?
Relax the rule of
Not drinking water on the bus during the hot month. Reaction to that, Jen?
You mean the passengers?
Yeah.
They're allowed to, they're drinking and looking now on the bus.
You're not supposed to be, because that's the announcement just tells them not to.
I don't think that was ever changed when that was implemented a couple of years. When John was here, they allowed the eating and drinking.
But we stopped it during COVID.
It was stopped during COVID. Okay,
Yeah,
so
it was stopped during COVID. There's an announcement on the buses. When you get on, it says no eating or drinking on the bus.
Would you just follow up and look into that? And if the rule now is that you are allowed to eat and drink, and then we just need to clear up the message.
Right.
If the rule has not changed and that they are not supposed to, then we need to consider whether to relax that altogether or to at least for water, because I think that is a.
And the reason I have reservations about that, because talking to security with the number of trespasses that was issued recently, where they had to take people off the bus for intoxication. What they're doing is putting alcohol in other bottles to disguise it. That's what, and even from a couple of the operators told me the same thing. That's what they're putting alcohol in other containers.
Well, would you all talk about this issue in terms of how do we, is there a way to reach some
Yeah.
balance in that? Because I know every time we have an all or nothing rule,
Right.
it helps one situation and makes something else worse. So if you all could look
Yeah.
into that, but if there's, I'm leaning, I hear what you're saying, Jackie, in terms of, but whether the number of people who would abuse their ability to have water on the bus outweighs the number of people who would benefit from having access to water while they're fighting. Let's take a look at that. Would you all bring a recommendation back? here?
Yes.
Or you may just need to take some action at staff level to look at that. It may not even rise to the level of a board issue if unless it requires some major policy change.
Madam Chairman, I have a quick question. This is Will.
Yes, well,
Pamela, do we have signage in our transit stops, the covered areas that say no drinking alcohol?
No, not in the shelters. We don't have any signage that has any kind of directive like that. But we do have the rules of the road. That covers that.
And is that, I mean, is it visible if you're in the shelter that, because I've got,
We don't have anything posted in the shelter.
that's just on the bus.
Yes. it's on
Okay.
the buses.
I've gotten some merchants from the various hospitality districts reaching out to city council members about individuals, maybe not necessarily riders of the Comet, but using the shelters, drinking alcohol, brown bags and whatnot. So just something to consider if there's any signage that we've used in the past, or if any other system uses, to consider.
To somehow make those rules of the road evident to riders or both on the bus and in the shelters.
Right, because I mean, if CPD does respond, or if the sheriff's department does respond, just to allow them to make note of that, to point it out, and not take it to another level would be great.
We do have no loitering signs.
No loitering.
Yeah.
Well, I know, well, that gets back to,
Loitering.
some folks are waiting on the transportation service to come and aren't loitering, but they are, drinking an alcoholic beverage while they wait.
While they're waiting. Okay, right, that's, and that kind of carries over into the earlier thing, the question that was really connected to the question of eating and drinking on the
Yeah.
bus. So thanks, Will, for calling that to our attention, and we'll add that to the substance
Thank
of
you.
that, what you're trying to work through.
And we still have law enforcement patrolling those areas and checking the shelters and stuff. That's still ongoing.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right, we have the by route ridership, but I think we'll just bypass that in Eric's absence today. And go on to the Lucius and River Super Stop. That also is Eric's, and Leroy's not with us. Can you comment on that?
I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, I was looking around the room, Leroy, not I heard anything else. Okay, all right, well, tell us about the Lucius and River.
Yeah, they locked me out of the room today.
So whatever you did, you got to fix that.
Yeah. Okay, just a quick update on the Lucius Road project there. The project is still on schedule to be completed the month of September. Still, we haven't had any accidents there on the project, so that's great. We're continuing to have our meetings with the project manager on a bi-weekly basis and also a monthly basis. The traffic signals there, as you know, they are installed, And they did set them where they're flashing yellow. I don't think that changed from last week. Jackie, those, are they still flashing? Giving-
No, we had a green light when I came
They're
in this
fully,
morning.
yeah, they're fully functional now, Leroy.
Oh, they fully functional. Okay, great, great, great. So I know when I was there last week, they were still, so.
Yeah.
So it's good to know that they're fully functional, because I know we had that question in our board meeting when they will be fully functional. So that's great. Probably the biggest, the big next step is them preparing the space there for asphalt. We did run into some issues that we're working through the project manager and the contractor on as far as the soil there. But we're still on schedule to get that resolved. So the next big step would be the asphalt process. So hopefully that will start in the coming weeks. But outside that, like I said, the project is still on schedule, and with our bi-weekly meetings and monthly meetings, and even we have communications throughout the week. If something comes up, we're able to resolve those things and keep the project on schedule. So that's my update there on the Superstock.
Leroy, I have a request. If we have a schematic or something that shows us what that site's gonna look like on completion, could you send us a copy of that? You know, of particular interest to me is the assurance that we are have a landscaping plan for that, because when we create a whole new little heat island out there with nothing but asphalt, you know, I'm hoping that the parking and I don't recall that in the plan, so it may just need to refresh my opinion, whether refresh my memory on whether we are going to be replanting trees for shade. So would you just do that? Would you just look and see if we have a schematic that shows that, and just send copies to the committee?
Yes, I'll work through Mr. Harrison, our project managers, and get that out to you all.
Good, thank you. All right. So then that moves us to the soda cap update. Pam, you'll take the lead on
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So where we are with the soda cap update is that prior to Eric running to the hospital, we were transferring the documents that had the new route, preparing that so it could go to Smart Maps. And then so it could be further designed by Flock and Rally to be that schematic that really shows more destinations than just being a transit type map. So that's where we are in that. Our next big event is with Allen University, and we have meetings coming up with them to plan that out. And that's with the incoming students and their parents, taking them on a ride there. And then we'll be prepared for the conference. So that's where we are right now.
Any questions for Pam on that? Okay. All right, well then we'll move on into the special COVID subcommittee update. Do we have new information that we need to receive on that?
No, I didn't have anything.
Nothing to add to what we are. How about for you, Pam?
Only that the vaccines are slowing down at Comet Central. And I guess I kind of need a little bit of guidance on how much longer we want them to be available, because, you know, the funding is gone for it. So.
Right, and I'm thinking, what I'm reading is that DHEC is opening up additional sites, and what we're really dealing with now, I think at this point, in terms of, besides that portion of the population that was not vaccinated, and I'm not sure we're going to make any headway with that, just with our site. And then the other two populations would be the second booster for older people, which I don't think we are a real key part of that, of reaching that population. And then the other is that is the fact that babies can be, and we know that they're doing that in
Hospitals and.
in medical care settings, so, what's, Mr. Burgess and Will and Allison, what are your thoughts about when we need to just say to end offering vaccines at the transit center?
Madam Chair, every time I get close, then they come up with a new variant. So.
Right, the variants don't give up, but we don't have a new vaccine. The only thing that, I mean, the vaccine is to for the overall, the COVID, but some of the variants are figuring out how you get around that, so.
Are we talking about boosters? I mean, because, I'm probably close to being due for a second booster. My son is probably ready for a booster. I'd love to see us,
Yes,
keep
I
people
mean,
going with boosters.
You get the same vaccine for the booster, and there's some variations in dosage, but it's the same vaccine. So if you are due a booster shot, I mean, we are offering those. What I was looking at was when we look at the population that may seek vaccinations at the transit center, we really were started initially. It wasn't limited to riders, but we really were trying to make vaccines available to people who were riding buses and didn't have the ability to take the time to go to some other site for their vaccination. And so the booster shots, as you mentioned, Allison, have been for older age groups. They may be extended now to younger adults. And that really is my question. Do we have enough of a population that we think we can reach effectively by offering vaccines at the transit center, that we need to continue this for a while longer? Or should we just put that for a decision at next month's meeting?
I think we can, let's bring it to the larger group. I'd love to hear what they have to say. I am hesitant to stop now just because we are still, my husband was talking about this particular variant, and the seriousness of it. I think the more people have access to the vaccine, even if it's just a few people, we can keep helping people stay healthy.
Suggestion. So shall I just bring that to the next board meeting and the report from the service committee and raise the question to the larger board?
I'm open to that.
Okay.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, could you please include the funding outlets for that operation for information when we take it to the larger board?
All right, because it's, as Pam pointed out, the special funds that were available for us to start it up are not still there. So, Pam, would you work with Rutherland to bring that?
Well, it never cost us anything.
Oh.
So it didn't cost the common anything.
We
the
just
fund-
provided the
yeah.
space.
Yeah, the funds were coming directly to the vendor.
So what is the vendor saying in terms of their willingness to continue with that?
I wanted to hear what the board and the committee said, so I'll go back to them and ask what.
Ask what they're thinking about that, and would you let me know that before the board meeting,
Yes,
so I can include that and you'd be able.
But Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Ferguson.
is this just that we provide the location with no funding? Is that correct?
That's what I'm hearing, is that we provide the place for them to do it, but they, up until this point, have had the extra COVID funding to do that in another site. And so what Pam's saying is that she's gonna check back with them to see if they are having the same kind of conversation, if our vendor is having this kind of conversation about how long they can continue that.
Correct.
Okay. and-
Well,
Okay.
if it's federally funded and they're paying for it, I think we keep it going as long as it's federally funded.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I'll look to hear from you, and then we'll have this on top. I'll make sure I include this in the report to the board this month. All right, anything else to come before the committee? Not to have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Is there a second?
Burgess second.
Mr. Burgess seconded, and so can we just do that by acclamation? And we are adjourned. Thank you.
Aye.
Have a good day.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye. Have a good evening.